What's going on, everyone? Welcome into Plazon's podcast. Today, we will finally be doing a draft preview on the man, the myth, the legend, the most talked about player in this upcoming NFL draft, Fernando Mendoza. And does he really need an introduction? This is a Heisman Trophy winner. This is a man who went undefeated, the first ever college football playoff 12-team perfect season, and won the national championship, of course, with the Indiana Hoosiers. Fernando Mendoza. He is going to be the number one overall pick. At the end of this video, I'm going to tell you whether or not I think he should be. But let's talk about the strengths, the weaknesses, my overall comp and grade, and then a little bit of a review. So let's start with the strengths. For starters, going all the way back to his days at Cal as a starter, I think he runs a system. Doesn't necessarily matter what system. We'll talk about that in the weaknesses a little bit, but he runs a system to a T. I mean, he nails layups. He runs plays to perfection. There's not a lot of off-script stuff that he does. Now, some might say that that's a negative, but I would say if I'm a coach and I think my scheme is damn near perfect, I want my quarterback to stick to the script. Mendoza does that, quite frankly, better than anyone that I've seen on tape in quite some time. I mean, I'm going to make some comparisons later that a lot of people are going to find insulting, but I am giving him the highest of compliments when giving those comparisons. But secondarily, with these strengths, he's willing to put his body on the line. Now, everybody remembers the national championship touchdown where he keeps it on like a 3rd and 7 up the middle, takes a huge shot, sticks his arms out, and scores a rushing touchdown. That's kind of what I'm talking about. But, he's not going to see that many of those moments in the NFL. It's highly doubtful that that will happen in the Super Bowl. What you're looking for, though, is a quarterback who's willing to take punishment to deliver an accurate throw. And Mendoza absolutely does that. He can take a hit in the pocket. Quite frankly, he's willing to take the hit in the pocket. And that's something that you don't necessarily see. Now, he does have his frame is a little slender, but he's a bigger guy. He's 6'5". I think he could put on some more meat on his bones, and he could, quite frankly, become kind of a tank. Not necessarily like Big Ben style, but definitely somebody who can learn and has already done so in the college football ranks, taking hits. He can absolutely do that. That's a major compliment to his game. Like I said, in this day and era of football, you don't see a lot of quarterbacks that want to do that. You see a lot of QBs like Kyler Murray, for example, or even, a bigger quarterback like Caleb Williams would rather, step back, scramble, and try to make a play where there's already a throw in place for you to have made. Now, Caleb Williams does the scramble drill better than anybody. Mendoza knows his strengths. His strengths are sitting in the pocket and delivering. He's one of the best pocket passers that I've seen in quite some time. Now let's continue to talk about these strengths. Pinpoint accuracy and timing. It reminds me a lot of some of these system quarterbacks that come through that, everybody kind of dogs on as, oh, what does he look like, off script and whatnot. Well, what I want to hone in here is the whole reason that people bring up those critiques in the first place is because Mendoza doesn't do the obvious wrong. He does it unbelievably well. He's a huge tempo quarterback. You don't really see him pat the ball that much, but it's almost like he's on beat. Like it's like you're snapping your finger to him, to a certain tone of music. And he just, the way he plays the game is just so smooth and fluid, yet he delivers really on time as well as accurate. The back shoulder fades, you can't get better than he can do it. I'll be quite frank with you. Go back and watch that Oregon game from the regular season. It's a tie ball game, I believe 20-20, 6 minutes left in the fourth quarter, and Mendoza delivers an absolute strike to Elijah Surratt on the back shoulder fade in the left side of the end zone. Those are the highlights that you want to see from a quarterback that doesn't show you a ton of quote unquote flashy plays. He just plays the game at a pace where the offense functions the same from their own 10-yard line all the way down to the opponent's 10-yard line. So he's Mr. Consistency. Last but certainly not least, I'm going to say what a lot of people have said, but I'm going to say it in a different way. This guy delivers in the clutch. A lot of people talk about the game versus Miami, but I want to focus in on the throws that he made versus Ohio State and Penn State. That throw, of course, actually, you know what? I'll just focus on the throw versus Ohio State to Charlie Becker there at the end of the game. I believe it was a third down. Now, they ended up punting later in the drive, but extending that drive and not allowing Ohio State a real chance to drive down the field and tie the game in a 13-10 low-scoring game was exactly what you expect from a guy like Mendoza. He did the same thing with the touchdown pass versus Iowa. That was an absolute slop fest of a game. Tied 13-13 with a little bit left to go in the fourth. He hit Surratt again on a slant route. There's no back end coverage, and Surratt goes 40-something yards for a touchdown. He continuously moves the ball late in the fourth quarter when the moments really matter. We've seen some lowlights from him early on in some of these games, but, like I said, when the lights are brightest, he's delivering at an extremely high level. So those are my strengths. Let's talk about some of the weaknesses. Now, for starters, I've talked about how he's so good with accuracy and timing. I don't necessarily think when he goes off script, he is that good of a playmaker. He can run the ball, but is he really a runner? I would say absolutely not. He's not a burner. He doesn't have a ton of lateral quickness and agility. He's not going to juke you out of your shoes. And he's not a bruiser either. So think about the scramblers of the modern NFL. He's definitely not Michael Vick. He's not Cam Newton. He's not Kyler Murray. Those are the three kind of archetypes where, Michael Vick's kind of a finesse guy, moves down the field quickly. Kyler Murray is just lightning fast. And Cam Newton, of course, is just a flat out bulldozer. Mendoza can run the football, but it's more in a design run pattern. A lot of up the middle QB draws, RPO looks as well. I don't think you're going to get away with many of those with Mendoza and his kind of a lack of athleticism. I've seen several comparisons to Jackson Dart, and I don't necessarily agree. I think Dart, when you watch him run the football, even going back into his college days, he's more of a natural runner. Would not call Mendoza that at all. And not to mention, I don't think after seeing the type of hits that he took on some of these running plays, like the one in the national championship game, you can't take those type of hits in the National Football League. Somebody is going to absolutely rock you and maybe put you out for the rest of the year. So I don't think a lot of teams are going to be asking him to run, number one, because he's not in my opinion, not a natural runner. And number two, there's a lot of, little things to learn with running the ball that probably will get glossed over just because there are so many other facets of his game that he's going to have to improve to make it in the professional level. So let's talk about the system that he's in. In my opinion, this reminds me a lot of other really successful college systems. I look at Ohio State, Alabama, maybe even USC with Lincoln Riley. These systems are meant for quarterbacks to succeed. They're pretty simplistic. I wouldn't want to discredit Mendoza, though. There are several spots throughout the season where he actually goes out, reads the field from 1, 2 to 3 on his progression list, and then makes a good strike. But a lot of the system is RPOs. A lot of the system are quick fire, slant routes, out routes, ins, screens. You don't see that in the NFL terribly often, especially as you get deeper into a system. When you start out your NFL career, yes, your team is trying to get you layups, especially early on in the game. But when it comes to that third and fourth quarter and the script is out of the book because you're not going off script a lot of the times, you got to make reads. And if you can't do that, you don't really work in the NFL outside of like some perfected systems. Kyle Shanahan does it. if Mendoza can get paired with a guy like him, which he might later on, but I'll talk about that in just a little bit. But secondarily, let's see, what else have I got here? Off platform, I've kind of said this already about his running ability, but off platform, I do not see it at all for him as a thrower right now. He has arm talent, right? He can deliver a accurate ball, but in terms of arm strength, it's not there without his body. He delivers some strikes with his body translating with him in his throws, but you don't see the natural arm strength of Patrick Mahomes or Caleb Williams out there. Specifically, I want to talk about the interception that he threw versus Oregon in the fourth quarter. I believe the ball game is tied, or maybe Indiana's up by a touchdown, but he gets disrupted in the pocket. He has to backpedal just slightly, and then he throws the ball, and it is honestly a ball that could have been completed if the right arm strength was tied to it, but it's underthrown. Oregon picks it off. I believe actually it was 20-13. I'm getting plugged in here. It's 20-13. Oregon has the ball. Or no, Oregon's on defense. Mendoza throws that back shoulder or like off platform throw. It's underthrown and Oregon gets a pick six, and then the game is tied 20-20. But of course, I wouldn't call that a clutch factor play, because then Mendoza comes and marches down the field the very next possession and scores a touchdown to take the lead, and then Indiana doesn't give it back. But that was kind of a long tangent just to say there are a lot of spots with Mendoza, especially going back to his Cal days, where he's being asked to do things off platform, and his footwork and his arm strength just aren't there to do that yet. That is definitely something that can be worked on and developed. It's going to take the right system, though. Last but certainly not least, there were a lot of plays where Mendoza was able to deliver a strike. I wouldn't necessarily call it accurate, but the reason that the ball placement wasn't, quote unquote, as perfect as a lot of his other throws was because his footwork was just off. It didn't have anything to do with timing. It just had to do with flat out misplacement. Once again, this is a guy who didn't have a ton of looks coming into college, goes into Cal, doesn't play a ton his first year. Second year, though, steps up and makes some big time plays, and that's how he gets to Indiana. But you can still see some of those technical things that need to be worked out. And I would do that, sooner rather than later, because as you continue your football career, those things become bad habits, and those are extremely hard to break. So a lot of positives, by the way, and definitely some, question mark things about his development going forward. But overall, I think Mendoza, I'm not going to give his comp yet because I want you guys to kind of picture what I'm doing. He is a system quarterback. And I do not mean that as an insult. I mean it as a compliment. There are several players in the NFL that do not do systems well. I think Caleb Williams at times with Ben Johnson's system struggles because it's all about rhythm and timing. Caleb Williams is a tremendous talent. He's probably one of the most, actually I don't even think this, I know this. He's one of the most talented quarterbacks in the league. But when it comes to running a traditional system and developing the timing and the rhythm that you need to deliver balls accurately, he has not done that on a consistent elite level yet. We know about the clutch plays. We know about Mr. Iceman, but Williams has yet to do it. Somebody that's run Ben Johnson's system better, Jared Goff. Now, Jared Goff, of course, nowhere near as talented as Caleb Williams, yet both of these guys are number one picks for a reason. So that's where I'm going to get into my comparison. My comparison right now is Mac Jones. Now, once again, people will find that insulting and say Mac Jones is a backup quarterback. But many people forget, under Josh McDaniels in year one, Mac Jones was a Pro Bowler and the Patriots went to the Super Bowl. When Mac Jones was out there for the 49ers this past season, he played exceptionally well at a Pro Bowl level. I think there's a lot of teams out there right now that would be looking for Mac Jones. These are first-round quarterbacks, Goff and Jones, that do two things unbelievably well: timing and rhythm, and running a system. They do that. They don't do all of the checks and audibles that you would expect out of an Aaron Rodgers or a Patrick Mahomes or, or Caleb Williams, for example, but they do deliver the ball exactly where they're supposed to go. And play callers love that. I'm telling you right now, there's a reason why the rumors were Kyle Shanahan wanted to draft Mac Jones with the 3rd overall pick back in the 2021 draft. And that's why they went and got him in free agency. And that's why they're pretty much not willing to trade him while he's in San Francisco, because they want him to be able to run the offense almost as well as Brock Purdy does. So that being said, my comparison is to Mac Jones, but you could tie him to any of these other quote unquote system timing quarterbacks: Tua, Daniel Jones, Sam Darnold, Jared Goff. All 5 of these guys are first round picks who have failed in some spots and succeeded in others based off of the system around them. Now that's to be said about any quarterback. Don't believe me? Look at Deshaun Watson. Now, obviously the allegations and whatnot, I'll put aside for just a second and talk about how well he played in his first 2 or 3 seasons. Unbelievably well. The system was built to make him succeed. Deshaun Watson over the last few years, not nearly as good. Why? Well, Deshaun Watson was a massive off-platform, off-script thrower of the football. His arm talent is elite. He goes to a very system-heavy offense with Kevin Stefanski, and he doesn't play well when he's boxed in. Somebody that does play well when they're boxed in, Kirk Cousins. He did it with Stefanski back when they were in Minnesota together, and now Stefanski's in Atlanta. System quarterbacks can elevate to Super Bowl winning quarterbacks. If you don't believe me, look at Sam Darnold. His arm talent is off the charts, but when he was asked to do a bunch of stuff off script in New York and in Carolina, it didn't go particularly well. Now Darnold in the Seahawks system under Clint Kubiak was one of the best quarterbacks in football last year and won the Super Bowl. I'm going off on this massive tangent because I think there's a lot of insulting things said about system quarterbacks, but they can succeed when given the right tools to do so. So now, let's talk about my grade. I give Fernando Mendoza a 6.8 out of 10. That's not as high as I had guys like Drake May and Caleb Williams. I would say compared to those guys, he does not have near the amount of talent. But what he already does better, in my opinion, than Caleb Williams and Drake May did at the beginning of their careers is the timing and rhythm stuff. He can step in to a Clint Kubiak offense and succeed at a high level because he knows what to do. The plays are set before him and he does it kind of like the type A personality. The type A personality comes in and makes sure that all of the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. And they do things by the book. And they succeed. But when you put them in a scenario where they're asked to improvise, sometimes they don't do it well because not all the things around them are built to succeed. Mendoza, I've yet to see it done on an elite level consistently outside the system. But the system in and of itself can be something that brews success. Now, is he worth the number 1 overall pick? In my opinion, the answer is probably not. Not because he's not number 1 overall pick material. I think this guy is a certified winner. He can be an elite leader in a locker room. But I do think system-dependent guys need to go to systems that are already in place to have him succeed. And I will go back to those 5 guys that were successful at some points and not successful in others. Jared Goff in his first season under Jeff Fisher, I believe was the coach at the time, did not play well at all. Sam Darnold in New York, the system was not built to have him succeed. He failed. And when I say he failed, it wasn't his fault. It was the fact that the Jets put him in a position to fail. And so he did. Daniel Jones at points in his career had systems that were meant for him to succeed. And he did. He won a playoff game versus the Minnesota Vikings. Tua did the same thing. Mac Jones, of course, year 1 in the Patriots, did that. The very next year, Josh McDaniels is gone. Mac Jones did not play nearly as well. So I look at these guys and I think, how do we elevate them? Well, you put them on rosters that are ready to win now. Darnold with the Seahawks, Goff with the Lions, Daniel Jones with the Indianapolis Colts, Tua with the Dolphins a couple seasons ago, and then Mac Jones with the Patriots. If you have systems around them ready to succeed, they will absolutely win. The problem is the Las Vegas Raiders are probably, definitely from last year, but going forward, are the worst roster in the NFL. There are so many other problems that they need to solve before they get a quarterback. I don't think it would be a good idea to take Mendoza number one, regardless of whether or not Clint Kubiak is there. The receiving core is nowhere near good enough. The offensive line has had a ton of struggles. Now, he does have two big weapons in Ashton Genty and Brock Bowers, but there's a lot of question marks throughout the rest of this team. Asking Fernando Mendoza to go out onto the field as a rookie or as a second-year quarterback and come back from a 10-point to 2-touchdown deficit after the end of the first quarter because your defense is atrocious is not a position that you want to put a quarterback in that is system dependent. Because when you go down 10 to 14 points, you got to go off script. You got to create and force plays. That is not Mendoza's strengths. So, is Mendoza a number one overall caliber pick? Maybe. Is the Raiders the right place for him to go? Absolutely not. So I would love if the Raiders let him fall a couple picks to a team that's ready to compete with him, kind of like the Arizona Cardinals. I think he would succeed at an extremely high level. Trey McBride, Marvin Harrison, the offensive line is better than most. That's the place that I would like to see him go, but I do not think that we're going to see that happen. I do think he's going to go to the Las Vegas Raiders. Clint Kubiak is an excellent coordinator and play caller. If he can get the system perfected to the talent around him, Fernando Mendoza has a chance to succeed. I'm not saying that he's going to fall flat on his face, but I am saying it's going to be way harder than if he went to a place that was ready to compete with him. So, Mendoza, overall, I believe I gave him a 6.8 or 6. Oh, Lord, I've lost my train of thought here. I'm going to go with a 6.8 out of 10. Once again, lower than I put the naturally talented, uber, hyped prospects like Williams and Drake May. But I'm going to say year one, depending on where he ends up going, could look way better than May and Caleb Williams in year one. So that being said, let me know what you think in the comments. Be sure to like and subscribe. I appreciate every bit of interaction that you guys giving me, even the hate. So thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.